It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. Congrats, your business is doing great. All your hard work is paying off, but you need help like now, and you have to hire fast. How can you hire amazing candidates quickly? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast. And with sponsored jobs, your posts jump to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things I love most about Indeed is that it has one of the largest databases of job seekers, giving employers access to a wide range of candidates. And with job alerts, I get notified when new candidates apply. And with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. So how fast? Well, in the minute that I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SmartPassive. Just go to Indeed.com/SmartPassive right now and support a show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/SmartPassive. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. You spent months building towards launch day, but when the clock hits 0, your site crashes. Bots swarm, and loyal fans rage on Reddit. That's not good. Fanfare was built to stop that. Fanfare is the drop platform made for high-pressure moments, stampede-proof infrastructure, verified waitlists, and bot filters that actually work. Instead of refunds and rage, you get retention and revenue. And that sounds great to me. Your next launch shouldn't be a gamble. Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook and learn how to bulletproof your drop at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, that's fanfare.io/playbook. This is the Smart Passive Income Podcast with Pat Flynn, session number 87. Whoa, must be going through puberty again.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He once played World of Warcraft for 48 hours straight. Pat Flynn.
While DIY website tools are everywhere, most fall short on design and performance. Hit publish. Framer ships your site worldwide in seconds. No code, no compromises. Framer is a powerful, user-friendly platform that delivers developer-level results without writing a single line of code. Make your designs move and convert with Framer. Framer brings your site to life with powerful animations, dynamic content handling, and a design-first approach that helps your site stand out. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. Browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something of your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, scroll and looping animations, and much more in seconds. And it's free to start. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting of generating starter layouts and can even translate your entire site to any language. On the back end, you'll get responsive breakpoints, built-in hosting, a flexible CMS, and privacy-friendly analytics. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of pro on the house. That's framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Pat Flynn, and welcome to session 87 of the Smart Passive Income Podcast. I'm really, really happy you're here with me today, and I'm also really happy because I actually have a voice this week. I didn't have a voice last week. That's why there was no podcast episode last week. I tried my best, and I couldn't go more than 10 minutes without just really feeling pain when speaking. I had picked up some nasty bug when I was in Arizona for an event called PartnerCon, and I was invited to do a keynote presentation there, and I kid you not, 3 or 4 hours before the presentation, I was in my hotel room practicing and getting things ready, getting in the right mindset to deliver a good presentation, and my throat started to get all scratchy. You know, that feeling you get right before you're going to get sick. And then my muscles started to ache a little bit. And I was like, oh, no, please just let me last long enough to deliver this keynote. I had practiced a really long time for this. And luckily, I had done okay. I mean, actually, it was probably the best presentation I've ever given. I've got a lot of great feedback from that presentation. But I kid you not, like 4 hours later that evening, I completely lost my voice. And so I just lasted just long enough. And a couple weeks before that, I actually had my very first keynote presentation in St. Louis at the Financial Blogger Conference, and that went really well too. And so I'm sort of fresh off the topic of public speaking, and you know, these previous 2 keynotes were my first keynotes ever, my first 2 paid speaking gigs ever. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about public speaking with you today. You know, why you might want to consider doing it, or help remind you why you're doing it in the first place if it is something that you're doing right now. Also, how to do it, you know, some resistance that you're going to find along the way when preparing or getting ready to do your first gig, tips, everything I can give you to just help you in terms of public speaking. And yes, public speaking is definitely not a passive thing. It takes hours of practice. It takes hours of work and effort to put into it to deliver a great presentation. But I will tell you that the effort I've put into public speaking, it is the rewards have trickled down into every aspect of my business and in my life too. I've seen benefits for my podcast, for the YouTube videos, for communication. A lot of amazing things have happened since getting up on stage. I've been a better communicator at home and just all around with my friends and colleagues. It's just been an amazing thing. And so my goal for the next few years actually is to master, or do what I can to master, this craft of public speaking, because I know it will trickle down into everything else I do, and I know it will do the same for you. So that's sort of one of the reasons why I want to share this today. I guess you can call this sort of the Pat Flynn brain dump of public speaking. You know, I love that term, brain dump. It's just like, you know, everything I know about it, and I want to share it with you to help you out in case this is something you want to do. And I'm not going to try and convince you to do it, although, you know, some of the things I might share as far as why you would want to do public speaking may in fact do that. Now, I'm not saying after listening to this episode you're going to be an expert. I'm not saying after listening to this episode you're going to know everything there is to know about public speaking, because I don't know everything there is to know. I am years and years from mastering this craft. However, I've been deep into this sort of realm for the last 1.5 or 2 years. It's just done so much for me. I want to just give you everything I know to help you get a head start. After you listen to this episode, at least you'll have a starting point, some direction, some knowledge based on what I know in my experience and what I've learned in preparation for the public speaking gigs that I've done. And so I just wanted to share it with you today. So this is the Pat Flynn brain dump for public speaking. I hope you enjoy this episode. It's just a solo episode. I haven't done one of these in a while. So that's another reason why I didn't do an episode last week, because there was just me and I couldn't talk for that long. But I'm here today. I might squeak, or, you know, you might hear that pubescent voice again every once in a while, and I apologize about that. But, you know, this is the real thing. This is the real thing. But anyway, again, so happy you're here today. So let's talk about public speaking. Why would you want to do it? I mean, podcasting, for example, is a great way to deliver a message to so many people at the same time. You can get that one-on-one relationship with people who are listening, and you are sort of, quote, on stage when people are listening to you on your podcast, right? Those of you listening to me right now, I might not be, visually or physically on a stage, but you're listening to me. You've chosen to take time out of your day to listen to this episode, and of course, you all know how big a fan I am of podcasting, and I want to convince everyone out there to do a podcast, because actually a podcast is a great sort of stepping stone to the public speaking realm. So if you're looking to start a podcast, I highly recommend you go to podcastingtutorial.com. That'll redirect you to my tutorial. It's totally free, no emails or anything required. It has walked so many people already through how to start your own podcast. Actually, 100,000 people have viewed videos in combo there. So I'm really happy about that. And so, happy to do what I can there. But again, it's a stepping stone to public speaking. Now, why would you want to do public speaking if you can already deliver a message through your podcast and things like that? Well, there's a number of different reasons why you might consider it. One, like a podcast, like a blog, like YouTube videos, like writing a book, it's a very, very powerful way to share information. When you're on stage and everybody's eyes and ears are on you, you can honestly change people's lives. You can deliver a message and make an impact on people in a way where they're going to walk out of that presentation and take action, or walk out of that presentation and think a different way. And that is really our goal with everything we do and all the content we produce. And of course, if you're on stage and people come to your sessions or people watch you talk, it's just an incredibly powerful way to deliver a message and to have people take action. But of course, you need to do it, in a way that is compelling and people want to take action after doing it. And I'm going to share a lot of tips on how to do that later in this episode. Now, another reason you want to do it, sort of like writing a book, is it sort of puts you at an authority level. Not everyone speaks. Not everyone in the niche that you're in speaks. And so it automatically, just by doing it, sort of pulls you out of the crowd, helps you stand out, and allows you to sort of rise to the top of the industry that you're in, because not everyone's doing it. And if you could do it very well, it'll sort of prove yourself to the knowledge that you have about this topic and sort of increase your authority levels. And of course, authority is an incredibly important thing online. It helps build trust, and that trust that you have with your audience leads to every sort of transaction that can happen from that point forward. And I'm not just talking about monetary transactions, but transactions like subscribing to your email list, to actually reading the articles that you write, to sharing the articles that you write to other people's followers and fans. Like all those transactions come when people trust you. And when you are on stage, there's some sort of, pedestal that you're put on that people see, wow, okay, well, you're on stage. Great. I must, I got to pay attention to you because you're on stage. The other person isn't. So think about that really quick. The authority that you have when you're up on stage, it's really important. Now, of course, like I had mentioned, the last two keynotes that I did, those were my first two paid speaking gigs. So you can actually get paid for doing public speaking. Not at first. That's a really important thing. And when we start to talk about how to land these gigs and things like that and how to do public speaking, I will tell you, you're going to need to do it for free at first. It's sort of like freelancing. You just do it so that you can get your name out there, but also so you can improve the skill. And then over time, you can eventually start to get paid if people start to enjoy what you have to say, and you can provide entertaining presentations that other conferences will pay you to come and speak and deliver a message to their audience. So, you can get paid for it. I mean, some of the top, A-listers, they get paid seriously. I mean, this blew my mind when I heard this. I mean, people are getting paid 5 figures, sometimes 6 figures. I know Bill Clinton, obviously, he's way up there, and he gets paid like $200,000 to speak for an hour somewhere. Like, that is crazy. I mean, if we got to that point, you just have to speak once a year, and you'd be doing pretty okay. 1 hour a year for $200,000. That's crazy. But of course, we're not at that level. Hardly any of us are going to be at that level. I mean, that was the former president of the United States, and he's getting invited to all these things. He has a big name. For those of us, in the lower level, you can still get paid a good amount. And right now I'm at the point of where I'm charging between $5,000 and $10,000, which is amazing. And you might consider charging for your time as well. Again, if you have a message to deliver and you can deliver in a compelling way, people will pay for that. So just think about that. So we talked about it's a powerful way to share information, it builds your authority, and you can get paid for it. Now, beyond that, it opens up a lot of new opportunities for you because you are on this platform and you're speaking and people can see you. Your name's out there. Your name is on the playbill, if you will. People will notice you, and you're going to get opportunities that weren't there before. Since doing public speaking since October of 2011, it's been a little over 2 years now. I've gotten book deals or opportunities to do book deals. A few publishers, I'm not going to mention their names, have approached me because they've seen my presentations or they were at those events and they offered me to write a book for them. And I had to decline the offers because I'm not quite ready or not quite at that point yet, or have heard certain things about those certain publishers that, I want to keep my options open and explore things. But anyway, those opportunities would not have come if I wasn't on stage. And when you start to do this and you start to do it more, other conferences are going to come out and reach out to you to come speak with them. I mean, that's just naturally what happens once they see, especially once they see new people. They want fresh faces and new content into their conference. So they're going to reach out to you, bring you in. And again, not just the opportunities to speak at these events, but more importantly, the opportunity to speak at these events in front of audiences who would have never seen you otherwise. And it really, immediately, even before people meet you for the first time, because you're speaking and they're in the audience at these conferences and these new conferences that you go to, because these new opportunities open up. I mean, literally your traffic can go up, your email subscribers can go up, like down to that micro level, new opportunities happen. And beyond that, and probably the coolest thing and why I do it and why I choose to do it is because it's just really fun. It is incredibly fun to get up on stage. It's sort of, and I tell this to people when people ask me, well, why do you do it? Why do you go out of your way and spend all these hours preparing for these presentations? Well, one, I just love to deliver content and I love to explore different ways of doing it. I know it also helps the brand, of course, and helps me stand out of the crowd. But beyond that, it's just fun. Like I tell people, it reminds me of, and this is going to sound really dorky, it reminds me of when I was in marching band. Like I literally have the same feelings when I'm up on stage delivering a presentation when I was on the marching band field. I don't call it the football field. I call it the marching band field. I prepare for the presentation or for the show. And then when it's happening, I'm almost, because I've prepared so hard, I almost have this sort of out of body experience. Like I'm not even, I'm in the zone, I guess you could say. And then afterwards, I just sort of snap out of it. I'm like, whoa, what just happened? Like, and people are clapping and they enjoy the presentation or they enjoy the show. And I'm just, it's such a good feeling. It's such a good feeling to put some work into something and to have other people enjoy that work on the other end. I love that, and that's why I love doing public speaking. So those are some good reasons why you might want to consider public speaking, or if you're doing it already, just a nice reminder for you about why this is good for you and why you might want to keep doing it. I mean, I've just had so much fun. I've met so many amazing people, and like I said, amazing opportunities have opened up as a result. Okay, so now that I've talked a little bit about why you might want to consider doing public speaking, and I've shared a little bit about why specifically I do it, I want to talk about how to land these gigs. Of course, we're going to get into how to prepare and things you're going to struggle with and tips and how to do your slides and resources and all that kind of stuff in just a sec. But before you can get into that, you have to land these gigs. So how do you do that? Now, I was really fortunate because I was asked to do the first one that I did. The first presentation I had was in October of 2011 at the Financial Blogger Conference in Chicago. And I was emailed by the conference director. It's this brand new conference, and he reached out to me. His name is Philip Taylor. You can find him at ptmoney.com. And he had heard about me. He had some friends in the personal finance space that recommended that they try to reach out to me, which will not always happen. And I will tell you, if that didn't happen, I would probably not be public speaking today. That's why I really, really care for that particular conference, why I love PT and everybody there who throws on that conference, and why it's probably one of my favorite, or if not the favorite conference that I go to. It's because they gave me really my first chance or first step in the door or first opportunity. And if I were you, or if I was smarter, I would reach out and actually ask to do it. I was deathly afraid of public speaking back then. And it was only because I was asked that I was like, wow, maybe this is a sign I should actually do this. Again, if they didn't ask me, I maybe would have never, gone on to speak dozens of times or have these amazing opportunities happen or become a better communicator and work with people to help me master this craft that I know is going to help me in all other aspects of my business. So My advice to you is you have to reach out. If this is something you really want to do, or even if it's something you don't really want to do but know you should do, because I will tell you, I didn't really want to do it, but I knew I had to. And I'll talk about the resistance and things that are going to stop you from wanting to do this, or stop you from moving forward, or stop you from enjoying this process in just a sec. But again, let's continue with how to land these proposals. So again, you want to make sure you reach out, and a lot of conferences, you want to understand what conferences are available in the niche that you're in. That's the first thing. So you might even want to just go to Google and do some quick searches for conferences or events or conventions around your particular topic, and see if there are any places on those particular websites for those events to leave a speaker proposal. That's probably the easiest way. Not all conferences will do that. There are certain conferences, at least in the internet marketing, online business space, blogging space, such as New Media Expo, that will actually get applications from potential speakers, filter through all of them, and bring the best stuff out into the public so that they can deliver that content. Some conferences will do that, and that's probably the easiest and sort of lowest hanging fruit. Doesn't mean you're going to actually get those proposals accepted, but that's how that could be your foot in the door. But of course, it always helps to have a little bit of public speaking experience before you go and reach out. And so the question is, well, how do I get that experience? It's sort of like, this was mind-boggling to me when I would go apply for an architecture position, and they were like, oh, well, you have to have 2 years of experience. I'm like, how am I going to get that experience? Every place is asking for that experience. And that was something I couldn't give myself as someone who was trying to seek employment in that industry. But if you're seeking opportunities to do public speaking, you can create a public speaking gig of your own. Why not hold an event? If you have a little bit of an audience, you can do something like on meetup.com, bring a bunch of people together and hold a conference. And, even if it's for 10 people, that counts. And if you do a few of those, that would be something you could bring to these bigger conferences and say, hey, I hold local events every week or every month or every 2 months for 10 to 15 people. Here are some, what people have said about it and why I do this. And I think I could bring something and speak to even more people and change more people's lives if I were to come and speak at your event. So if you feel like you need some experience first, create your own experience. That's something that you could do. A few of you might remember Chris Ducker. He was actually here sitting right next to me in my home office here, and we had recorded a podcast episode a few episodes back talking about a live event that we did that we just threw on our own. We set up an Eventbrite page and shared that with our communities and had people fly to San Diego, and we did a little event of our own. And you don't even have to get people to fly in. You can just do it for the people who are local where you're at, and that will give you good experience to A, hone in on your skills, and B, to give you sort of credibility when you go to these bigger conferences that you want to speak to as well. They'll see that you have experience and you're just looking to expand. And you can get some good testimonials perhaps from people that have been to these small events that you put on, whether you do them for a fee or you do them for free. That's a great way, again, to get your foot in the door. Another way to go about it and to land these public speaking gigs is to perhaps go through your colleagues and your friends who are already doing public speaking. I mean, don't beg them to recommend to you, but just say, hey, are there any spots open at this event? Like, how would I go about speaking at this event? You never know. They might recommend you to the conference director or the person who sort of, creates the schedule of speakers. I mean, that can happen, and that has happened to me before. You just simply ask. There's a number of friends that I have who I've asked because I've been wanting to do more public speaking. And I say, hey, how would I go about speaking at this event? Sometimes they say, oh, well, here's a special page where you can send a proposal. Or sometimes they say, hey, well, I'll connect you to via email and you guys can take it from there. That can happen. And that'll only happen if you ask. Don't be afraid to ask. What's the worst thing that can happen? They'll say no, or they say, oh, I don't have a relationship with that person, or they'll say, oh, now's not the right time. That's fine, but you will never know unless you ask. So ask, share your interest to speak with your friends who do it already. They might help you out. And finally, as far as channels to potentially land a public speaking gig, I mean, you might want to perhaps get to know who is putting on these events that you want to speak at. Perhaps you attend an event that you think you can speak at. Get to know who puts them on. Get to know the director. Get to know who's coordinating. Ping them on Twitter. Send them emails. Do what you can to help them out so they can start to understand who you are and you can build a relationship with them. I mean, typically at these events when they're happening, they're going to be fairly busy. But there are times when they might just be on a break, or it might be after the evening's over and they're just winding down. They might be networking or at a networking party or something. Go and talk to them and get to know who they are. Express your interest in speaking at that event the next year, and ask them how you would go about it. I mean, just build a real relationship with them. It's going to be so much easier to get in and do these public speaking gigs with these people if they know who you are. So I've always taken the time out of each of the events that I go to, whether I speak to them or not, to get to know who puts them on, so I can sort of open up those doors for the future if I do choose to speak at these events. So that's just a little thing you could do. Obviously, once you start speaking, you're going to be landing a lot more speaking gigs just because those opportunities open up, and you might be invited back to speak again at these events that you've spoken at the next year if you do a good job. So yeah, those are things that can happen, and those are different ways that you can sort of get into the public speaking realm. Once you're in, it becomes a little bit easier, but really the challenge is and the struggle is just reaching out and trying to ask and putting yourself out there. It can be hard, and there's a lot of things working against you even before you land your first gig. Obviously once you land your first gig, and then you have to think to yourself, wow, okay, I have to deliver something. Even before that, there's stuff in your brain that can say, hey, no, maybe you shouldn't do this. Fight through that. When the resistance comes into play, when that fear comes into play, for me, that's a sign that whatever it is I'm trying to do is typically worth pushing through or breaking through. And so I would challenge you that if you are thinking about public speaking, or it's something you should do, but you fear it, to take that as a sign that this is something you should do. Okay, so let's say you landed your first public speaking gig. Before I give you the resources, before I give you the tips and all the techniques and strategies and things you could do to deliver a good presentation, the first and most important thing is to understand what's going on in your head. If you don't know what's going on in your head, all those tips and strategies and resources, they're not going to do you much good. So I want to go over some mindset stuff first. And this applies to everybody. Even if this podcast episode really isn't for you and you're not into public speaking and you don't plan on doing it, this is the type of stuff that will help you along the way, whether you're going to do podcasts or videos or anything, or if you're going to just go to conferences and talk to other people, or if this stuff is going to help you. So the mindset is the most important thing because it helps determine all the outcomes that happen around you. So the first thing to know is that with these public speaking presentations, you will be nervous. You're going to get nervous. The moment you land that gig, you're going to get those feelings of, oh gosh, I'm going to be on stage. People are going to look at me. I got to deliver. And what if I don't do a good job? Like all that stuff is going to happen in your head. Being nervous is good. It's a good thing. It's a good sign. There's a lot of famous people out there who still get nervous before they go and act, or they go and sing on stage. Adele being one of them. I heard she gets wicked sick right before she goes up on stage and performs, and she typically performs amazingly. She's a beautiful singer, and you wouldn't know that just 10 minutes before she got on stage, she was in the bathroom sick. She gets that nervous. I don't think you should get that nervous. That's up to you. Sometimes I feel sick right before I go on stage, but that's a good sign because that means I am actually caring about what I do. If you don't care, if you're not nervous, that probably means you don't care about what it is that you're attempting to do. And if you don't care, you're not going to put in the work to give yourself the best chance to deliver the best presentation you can give. So take that nervousness as a sign that whatever it is that you're doing, you actually do care about. And know that because you care about it, you're going to put in the work to make sure it's awesome. Also know that nervousness and all that fear and the resistance, like I said before, it's just a sign that whatever it is that you're doing, it's probably something you should do, and you should fight through it, and you should do the work to make sure you can deliver the best presentation you can. Now, there's something I want to share with you that my coach told me, that I read in a number of public speaking books, that really changed my mindset about how I approach these presentations and how I feel when I'm on stage. And that is, when you're on stage, everybody who's there and watching you, everybody whose eyes are on you and who's listening to you, no matter how big that crowd is, they all want you to succeed. They want you to do a good job. And that really changed things for me because, for some reason, humans, we always just think the worst things possible. We see these cartoons and these things on TV where somebody's on stage and they're getting booed and, people have tomatoes. Nobody's going to go to these presentations with a bag of tomatoes ready to throw them. They don't want people to do a bad job because they don't want to sit through a bad presentation. They don't want to not be entertained. They don't not want to learn something. And that really changed my mindset and my approach to these presentations because people want you to do a good job. And when you know that, you will want to deliver for them. And you will know that, there's nothing to be afraid of because they want you to do as good of a job as you want to do too. So that was another important thing as well. Now, one of the things that can make you really nervous before going on stage is not knowing your material. Out of all the books I've read and all the tips I've gotten about public speaking, the number one tip always is to just know your material. Because no matter what happens, if you know your material, things could break down. You could, the lights could turn off, the mic could go down, whatever. Like anything can happen. If you know the material, you will just guide yourself along the way. If you practice enough, and if you know what you're talking about, then you really have nothing to worry about. I mean, because it's stuff that you know, and you can it's just like you're having a conversation with one person. You can just have a conversation with a number of different people about that topic, whatever it is that you're going to be speaking about. Now, it's when you go into the presentation and you don't really know the material, or you are relying on the slides, or you are just trying to share something that you don't necessarily believe in. That's when the crowd can catch on that. That's when you lack confidence, and that's when just it's not as good as it could be. So know your material, and that means practice. You have to practice. You have to practice a lot. And that also means you have to get started soon, because it's really easy, once you book a gig that's maybe months down the road, to say, oh, well, I'm going to get started the next month. And then the next month you say, oh, well, I'll just wait till the next month. And then maybe you're 6 weeks out and you say, oh, we'll start the next week. And all of a sudden you have 4 weeks or 3 weeks left, and you haven't even put any thought into it about what you're going to present, how you're going to do it, what your slides are. I mean, that stuff takes time to figure out. And the more time you can give yourself by preparing sooner than later, and the more time you'll have to run through and actually perform, quote, perform or do actual sort of run-throughs or rehearsals of your presentation, the more likely you are to be comfortable on stage, the more likely it is that your audience will know that you're comfortable, and that you'll be able to better deliver that information, which will help them change their lives or do whatever it is they want to do based on whatever it is you're talking about. So it's really important to just get started sooner than later, to prepare yourself for what's to come, and that means practice. So again, practice, training, getting started early. And when it comes to training, there are places you can go to get training. I mean, the first and best place to go would probably be with somebody that who does public speaking. Take them out to lunch, take them out to coffee, just pick their brain for a little bit, talk about their experiences, pick their brains on what they would recommend you do the first time you go on stage. And just get to know what the process is like, and have them talk about their experience or their first time on stage or the mistakes that they've made. I mean, there's nothing better than actually just talking to someone about it and then being able to ask follow-up questions based on what you don't know. And so that will be awesome. So treat somebody out to lunch or breakfast or coffee or whatever, take them out for a drink and have some, great conversation about, public speaking. In addition to that, there are places you can go to get formal training, people who, put on these events or have workshops to become better public speakers. And those, of course, typically cost a little bit of money. I haven't done any of that sort of formal training. I mean, I actually hired a coach through a connection I had with one of my colleagues. That's how I got sort of my, quote, formal training, was actually from a coach from a friend who had worked with another coach. So, I mean, you can go down that route if you want as well. There are events and workshops out there. You can find them online, typically around your area. One I want to recommend is the SCORE conference. This is put on by Michael Hyatt. I haven't attended it yet, but I really, 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 really want to. Our good friend Cliff Ravenscraft from podcastanswerman.com, he actually attended the SCORE conference on that. And I remember him talking about how he just didn't really have any expectations going into it. He had sort of his own way of doing presentations and thought he was really comfortable doing it, which he was. He was a good presenter. Cliff puts a lot of passion behind his presentations. But then I remember watching a video that he did maybe 2 or 3 days, or maybe even the day after he came back from the SCORE conference, and he was talking, and he was just the way he presented himself was like complete turnaround. I mean, it's just so engaging and amazing. I mean, it literally changed him as far as being able to present. And so that was a SCORE conference put on by Michael Hyatt, which I highly admire him, and I highly recommend anything he does. I went to the platform conference that he put on, and I was introduced to the SCORE conference, COREE, there at the platform conference, and I couldn't attend it because of some other obligations I had at the time. But I definitely want to try and make it to the SCORE conference next time it happens. It's going to help you better your skills at public speaking. It's also going to help you understand how you can potentially get paid, to do public speaking as well, and have it be a part of what you do. So that's a SCORE conference with Michael Hyatt. There are other things out there. I think Toastmasters is something that typically happens in large cities and things. You can find a Toastmaster chapter around your area that you live in, and Toastmasters is this thing that's been going on for so long, where people come together to improve their communication skills, and they work together, sort of like a mastermind group. you can, but it's all about public speaking and becoming better communicators. And they'll have people come up, sort of quote the hot seat, and speak and present on something, and other people will be there and critique. And they have people counting and ticking the number of ums you make, and just helping you do everything you can to improve your public speaking skills. Again, I haven't done Toastmasters because of just when I was learning to do public speaking, I had a kid and a kid on the way, and so it was hard for me to find time to go out and get out of the house. So what I did really beyond that was I read a lot of books about public speaking. There's a few I want to mention here that I highly recommend. Stand and Deliver by Dale Carnegie is probably the number one book I can recommend. Very easy to read, very formulaic about how or what makes a good presentation. Not in a very systematic or rigid way, but in a way of, okay, these things work. These are the things you should do. This is how to do it. I highly recommend. Again, that's Stand and Deliver by Dale Carnegie. There's another book by Nancy Duarte, who has written actually two books that I want to recommend. First one is Resonate, and that will go over what sort of makes a great presentation as far as the structure of it and the sort of flow of the presentation, how to include stories in your presentation and things like that. And then also Slideology. That one's specific for how you should make your slides look. And I'll actually have a lot of things to say about slides, which I'll get into toward the end of this talk here. So that was another thing I did. I read a lot. And then while reading Stand and Deliver, one of the tips that I read in that book was you have to watch as many presentations as you can. And so this is great. You could do this at any time. You're at lunch at work or something, or you're just sitting in bed. You want to hone in on your skills a little more and learn something educational at the same time. Go to TED.com, watch some of the top presentations, and just go into it. Go into watching those presentations, as sort of a way to critique or understand what styles work or resonate with you. What are things that these speakers do that you feel are very effective, and what are some things that they do that maybe not be very effective? And it's going to be different for everybody, but that's how you sort of build your own styles. You sort of get inspiration from other people who are doing things that excite you, and you sort of incorporate that into how you do things. I must have watched, before my first presentation in 2011, I must have watched 50 TED presentations, and I got to understand what worked, what didn't work, and what the style that I sort of wanted to develop. Highly recommend that. That could be a fun way to also just almost subconsciously become a better public speaker too. But of course, you want to consciously go into it and think about what's working or what's not working for you as a speaker as well. So those are some things you could do to sort of get better before you even figure out what you want to do or what you want to present about. So like I said, just understand that being nervous is good. Practicing and getting started earlier than sooner is better than later. Getting training from either a coach or by talking to somebody that who does public speaking, or Toastmasters or the SCORE conference, reading books, again, Stand and Deliver, Slideology, Resonate. There's another one, Zen Presentation, which is a good one also, and just watching as many presentations as you can as well. And TED.com, TED.com is a great resource for that. All right, so let's shift a little bit and move on to the tips and strategies and things you can do in preparation for your presentation in regards to exactly what you're going to deliver, and also what you can do on stage to make sure you give the best presentation you can give and deliver your message in a way that it's going to affect people and have them take action on it. So the first tip I can give you, and this is something that I really focused on with my coach. He actually challenged me really hard to understand all about this, and that is, who am I speaking to? It's really, really important to know who your audience is, what type of person they are, what is it that they do, what is it that they want to get by going to this conference. It's important to understand what that is or who those people are, because that's how you know how you can share information with them or what to deliver to them. For example, this is what I did when I got hired to do the keynote presentation last week at Scottsdale, Arizona for PartnerCon. I didn't know what PartnerCon was. I never heard of it before, so I went on their website and discovered who was there. I looked at what they did last year and kind of what who spoke and on what topics, so I can understand exactly sort of what kinds of things these people who were in the audience wanted to know. And then the people who asked me to come speak, I drilled them. I asked them a lot of questions about who was going to be there, what kind of people were going to be there, and I discovered that this conference was specifically for those who use Infusionsoft, but even more specifically those who are partners and also Infusionsoft certified consultants, those who have gone through this rigorous test to become certified consultants to help other people install Infusionsoft software into their business and help them automate their business. And so that's what I learned. And then so I sort of dug deep into more of what Infusionsoft was and what these people were looking to get out of it. And that helped me craft my presentation, helped me take a presentation I had done in the past actually and redo it. Actually, this was the first time I had redone a presentation I did in the past. And it went really well because I sort of knew what parts worked and what parts didn't. And I took what worked and brought that with me. But beyond that, I was able to sort of personalize or even tailor that presentation specifically for that audience that was there. I was able to include things that I knew were going to be helpful to them that I probably wouldn't include in other presentations because it just wouldn't make sense. So understanding who your audience is and approaching it from there first, because again, that's who you're presenting to. I approached the Financial Blogger Conference keynote I did a few weeks back the exact same way. And luckily, I had been to that conference before. I understood exactly what type of audience that was. I've gotten to know a lot of people in the audience. So that made it really easy for me to craft a presentation that I knew was going to help them. Now, with your presentation, you should have an overarching theme or a core message that you want to share. So when people walk out of that presentation, something has changed in them. And that one thing that they could describe to somebody else in one sentence. And you want to do that. You want to be able to describe to some person who is about to listen to your presentation, what is that core message, that one thing that they're going to get out of listening to that presentation. Obviously, you're going to give them a number of different things in your presentation. You're going to have a lot of different pieces of content that are going to help support this core message. But what is that core message? I've gone into conferences before and sat in on a number of presentations where, it's a great presentation, the person's a decent speaker and it's entertaining, but afterwards I'm like, okay, what was the purpose though? Like, what was the overarching theme? And sometimes that's really important to understand what that is, especially when you're writing your proposals and stuff, because everything that you talk about, everything that you share, all the content that you provide, all the stories and data and anything that you put in your presentation, it's going to support that core message. And, you really want to hone in on what that is, because that's the one thing you want people to remember once they sort of walk out and go to the next conference or go to the next presentation. So think about that. What is the primary message that you want to give? What do you want to have them walk away with? And there are certain things you could do or include in your presentation that will help support that. And probably the best thing I can give you, and I want you to remember, this is sort of a brain dump. So everything in my head about this is just coming out onto the microphone right now. But the best type of way to support whatever it is that you're trying to share and the message that you're trying to bring to your audience, the best thing you could do to support all that is to share stories. Stories are just stories are an incredible marketing tool. Stories are a great way to engage an audience, and stories are a great way to get people to pay attention and put themselves in your shoes or in the shoes of the people you're telling stories about, so they can understand exactly what you're talking about. So take that core message, but support it with certain points, and support those certain points with stories. Human beings are just, we're tuned, and we're, ever since we're little, we're into stories, and that's why everybody goes to the movies, or that's why we read books. So that's why people want to go to your presentations too. They want to hear stories that help support the main purpose or the cause of you being there. And so, stories are important, but data is important too. I shared a lot of data actually in this most recent presentation, a lot of studies that supported my sort of ideas or messages. And a lot of people came up to me afterwards and were like, "Thank you for including that data," because I couldn't argue against that. There's nothing. Data is data, right? It is what it is. And if you could support your content with great studies or actual experiments that you do with actual results, there's no arguing against that. So there's no better way to prove, support stories support your message, but data proves it, I guess you could say. And so make sure to include some data as well. You don't want to become too data driven in your presentation though, but including a study here and there to support your ideas can do really, really well. The one thing I want to say about data though is a lot of times people, and I used to do this too, I put charts up, I put graphs and diagrams on the slides, and I try to avoid that now because nobody's going to look into the details of a slide. And I'll get into slides in a second, but the main purpose of a slide is just to connect an idea with an image so people can remember that idea in the future, visually. When you start to put data, if it's beyond, 2 bars and a couple numbers, it starts to get too difficult to read, because people aren't going to sit there and read a slide for 10 seconds. They're going to look at it and take a glance at it and try to understand and learn from it really quick. And then they're going to start listening to you again. So obviously, you're there to present and you want eyes on you, and you just want to use your slides to support the message that you're sharing and the ideas that you're sharing and the stories that you're sharing and the data you're sharing. But you don't want the data to just be graphs that, hey, look at this or look at this. I used to do that all the time in my presentations. And, I got some direct feedback from my coach and some other people that I'm not going to read that graph, so why put it on there? But there are certain things you could do, and I'll talk about that in your slide later when I talk about slides. Now, another thing you could do is you can get your audience involved. That's a great thing to do, especially in the beginning of your presentations. This is something I did at FinCon. It was really easy, but when you can get people moving around a little bit or interacting with you somewhat, and it's best if you can get everybody to do it in a manner, it's going to help you, because it's going to just loosen people up. It's going to have people pay attention to you because they are going to do and join everybody else who is also participating as well. So here's what it did at FinCon, and I'll share that presentation with you in a little bit. I don't have the video yet. Actually, the video for a while got lost. The data was corrupt for the video, so I actually didn't have the video for a while, but I just got an email the other day saying that there's a possibility that it could be recovered. So I'm really, really crossing my fingers here and hoping that video will come so I could share this entire presentation with you, the keynote I did at FinCon. But this is sort of interaction I did at the beginning to get people involved and excited. So the first thing I did was I asked people, after a quick introduction and sharing some of my own experience about the conference in the past, I asked the audience, well, how many of you are here for the first time? And so I had a number of people raise their hand, and that immediately got a nice reaction of people because, those are quite a few people who were at FinCon for the first time that year. And then I asked, okay, well, and then I said, well, thank you, put your hands down. How many of you are here for a second time? This is your second time at FinCon. And so the people who were there for the second time raised their hand, and I said, thank you, hands down. And it's really important to do that too. You want to sort of guide, people when to do things. You don't want to just say, okay, and then next. You want to hands up, thank you, hands down. And then I asked, okay, how many of you have been to all the financial blogger conferences? Because there's only been 3, and the rest of the people raised their hand. So everybody in the room raised their hand at one point, and that was a really cool way to sort of interact without me actually going up to a single person, but having the entire group sort of raise their hand at one point or another and sort of participate in the presentation. Become a part of it already right at the beginning. And again, that just sets the mood and the tone for the rest of the rest of the way. All right, let's see what else. There's a few things that you don't want to do. As far as your initial impression or what you do on stage at first. And that is, there's 2 things I want to talk about. The first thing is you don't ever want to go up on stage and the first thing you say is, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And then go forward. There's no need for that. I would hope that people would understand that you're all excited to be there, or they will see that through your content and the delivery of your message. You don't need to say that. You don't need to go up and say, "Hey guys, thank you so much for allowing me to speak," or "I'm such an honor to be here." Don't say that. You don't need to say that. A second thing you don't need to say, and this is something I used to do all the time at school. I used to always say, "Well, I didn't have time to finish, but blah, blah, blah." Or you might say, "Oh, well, I got sick yesterday, but I'm going to try my best to give you the best presentation I can." Or, "Man, I woke up with a massive headache, but here I am, and I'm going to deliver for you." You don't ever want to start off with something negative like that. And, people wouldn't even know that you were sick the other day or that you didn't finish in time. Maybe they will figure that out. This is, I'm talking about my example from school. But I would always say, "Oh, well, I didn't have time to finish this part that I wanted to do here." You talk about what you wanted to do, but you didn't get to do it yet. If you didn't say that, people wouldn't know, right? And so you're just already immediately starting off in a negative way. Same thing when you go up on stage. If you say something negative at first, it's just going to set the tone in a way that you don't want to set the tone. So start off positively, start off with a story and it's something that demonstrates what it is that your core message is about. Don't start off by saying something random. I will always start my presentations now with a very strong point or some example or some story. At my presentation at New Media Expo, and this is another strategy you can use. That presentation, if you haven't seen it yet, I'll link to it in the show notes, smartpassiveincome.com/session87. But I started that presentation at New Media Expo by doing something wrong. I talked about how I was excited to be there and things like that. So I shouldn't have done that. But what I did do right was I actually started with a video. And you don't have to start with a video, but it just made sense here because this video demonstrated the power of what people do for things that are free. And that was what the presentation was about, that you should absolutely be using free in your business because it just gets people to take action that they wouldn't normally take. That was the core message. And to demonstrate that right away, I played this video, sort of a clip on YouTube that I found of these people who were pressing this button, 100 times to get, free crisps or crackers or something. I think it was in like Australia or something that this was happening. So I don't know exactly what the snack was, but then the number of times they had to push the button increased, and you'd see people pushing this button 500 times or 1,000 times. And this one woman saw that she had to press this button 5,000 times, and she did it just to get this free thing. So that was really funny way to start the conference, or to start the presentation. It was a great way for people to have a little bit of a laugh before I even got to speak. And also, it just loosened me up too, because I saw people already there and enjoying the content, even though it wasn't me in this video. And then I spoke and took it from there. So the next time I did this presentation, this was the one I redid in Arizona a couple weeks ago. I was introduced on stage, and I didn't say a word. People were looking at me. And it's so crazy what happens at the very beginning. I mean, if you really want people to focus on you, go up on stage and don't say a word for like 5 seconds. And you'll see people's attentions are going to be directly on you. What are the first things that are going to come out of your mouth? And so at this presentation, actually, what I did was I didn't say a word. I actually walked up to the slides, and I sort of did this sort of creative thing where, in that video that I share, there's that button that people are pushing, like I talked about. Well, on the slide that shares the title of the presentation, there's a button as well. So I go to the screen and I actually push the button, and simultaneously while I'm pushing the button, I press the next button on my key on my little trigger or my remote, which triggers the next slide. So it's as if I push that button and the presentation starts. So I didn't even say a word until about 2 minutes into the presentation, after people were laughing and seeing this video. It set the mood really nicely. So that's how I approached this particular presentation, and sort of hopefully give you some ideas on the start of it, because the start is really important. You want to start off in a memorable way, and a lot of times it's simply just an amazing story that supports your main idea. And if you watch a lot of TED Talks, often they'll start with a story. So check that out. All right, what else? What do you do with your hands? This is a big thing, and another question that a lot of people had for me, and a question that I had before I started to read up and learn about this. And the funny thing is, whenever I go to do another presentation, I always go into the next presentation trying to improve on one or two particular skills that I know will help me become a better speaker. And during this last couple times, I really focused on what I was doing with my hands, because for a while I would just put them in my pocket, or I would just fold them up, or I would, do that praying position, a lot of times, which isn't typically a hand position that you want to do. I mean, you could use certain hand positions and things like that. I mean, the praying one with the two palms together in front of you, that's a very sort of, apologetic type of stance, I guess you could say. So there's certain moments when that might work in a presentation, like if you wanted to pull back the curtains a little bit and talk a little bit about something personal. That's a good strategy you can use as far as hand motions to reflect that. Seriously, you can get really ninja with your hand motions and how they reflect or support what you're saying. But typically the rule is, okay, when you're talking, your hands are moving. And when you're not talking, your hands are not moving. And you don't want to keep bringing your hands back down every time you stop. That was another thing that I did for a while, and I've noticed a lot of other people do, is they talk with their hands and they're flowing, and their hand movements are sort of expressing what they're saying. But then when they stop talking, their hands go down every time, and they keep like slapping their thighs every time they stop talking because of that. I mean, or they bring their hands back and they sort of fold their hands together in front of their belly buttons or in front of their bellies, right? Because I don't know, it's just a comfortable sort of neutral position when you're talking to someone. That sort of shares a little bit of nervousness or fear. That's what they say. I mean, I guess that's the case. But, it's nice to just talk with your hands, and when you're not talking, your hands stop. And then they continue moving forward or doing whatever it is that they do when you speak again. Now, again, I would recommend that you watch a lot of videos of good presentations or where you know there are good presentations like TED.com and see how people use their hands. You'll see a lot of people doing the stop and go thing, and there are certain things you could pick up on that will help you emphasize certain things. So, for example, when I talk about certain steps, like if I say, okay, step 1, step 2, I'll actually use my fingers to say 1 or 2, right? Or I'll sort of like with my left hand make a palm, and with my right hand sort of like I'm sort of chopping at my palm. Did I say that right? Left, right? I don't know. But it's hard to say this on podcasts. I mean, I should probably do a sort of a demonstration video or find someone to help me figure out, what hand motions do and how they can help emphasize a presentation. But anyway, sort of getting a little off topic here. But just the main thing, be conscious about what you're doing with your hands, and when you're practicing, try to figure out ways or parts of your presentation where you could do certain things with your hands that'll help you emphasize certain things. Another cool thing I learned is stage presence. As far as where you are on stage, because typically, there's going to be a stage, or you're going to be, maybe at down on the same level as people, but you will have a lot of room to walk around. And I remember my first presentation and watching, a lot of other people's first presentations when trying to become better. I always noticed myself going back and forth within like a 5-foot radius, just walking to the left and walking to the right, walking to the left, walking to the right. And it just, once I saw myself doing that, I was like, dude, you got to stop doing this. I mean, it's so annoying to just watch somebody move back and forth. Again, there are certain rules or things that work and things that don't when it comes to moving around. I mean, you don't want to just move back and forth and swing back and forth. That's sort of a nervous reaction, a subconscious nervous reaction. If you just keep moving back and forth in the same spot, that's just, that it's not helping anything, and it's sort of distracting. So what you want to do is, if there are serious, important moments or big messages that you want to share where you want the focus to be the words that you're saying, you stop moving and you look at your audience. That's when you can use certain hand directions you can use certain hand movements, like bringing your fingers together and really doing almost like a political. I mean, I wouldn't do the the thumb on your finger type, no new taxes, that sort of thing. I mean, I've never seen that in anywhere else but like a political presentation. But you could use your hands to emphasize certain things. But anyway, when it comes to moving around or where to be on stage, when you're sharing something important, or you want to make or put emphasis on a certain point you're making, stop moving, look at the audience, and say what you're going to say. When you start moving and you're saying something important, it's like, okay, well, movement typically means, okay, transition period. Now, if you're doing comparisons, a really cool thing to do, if you're going to compare one thing or another, something you should do versus something that you don't, a sort of cool thing you could do to subconsciously emphasize and support that point is your placement on stage. So with your hands, also, you could do this too. If you say you do this and not that, you could say this and move to the left side with your hands. You just sort of like move your hands to the left, or that, move your hands to the right. Same thing on stage. If you're comparing pros and cons or anything that might be one thing versus another, you could share one thing on one side of the stage and then transition into the next thing on the other side of the stage. And so, again, it might not sound like it matters very much, but it's a cool, sort of interesting way to just get really ninja with where you are on stage versus what you're saying. So those are some other things you could think about. So let's see, what else? Here's something cool. Even before you start speaking, and again, I'm sorry I'm all over the place here. This is sort of a brain dump. I just wanted to, this isn't scripted at all. It's not even, it's bullet pointed, but it's not scripted because I just wanted to have everything spill out of my brain for you for this. One of the best things I learned was, and again, I learned this in Stand and Deliver by Dale Carnegie, was that before you go on stage, even 10 minutes before you go on stage, introduce yourself to a lot of the people who are going to be there in your audience. That group will start to form. You may be outside the doors. Maybe there's another presentation going on. You're just waiting to go in, or maybe you're inside, the room already, and people are starting to sit down. I mean, go around, meet people, talk to them. It's going to help them understand and be more comfortable with watching you. They'll be like, "Oh, this is cool. This person came up to me and introduced himself. I'm going to pay attention." So in that regard, it helps, but it helps you as well because it's so much easier to present to people that you know. And even if you've just met them, that's better than not meeting them at all. And you don't have to go to every single person in the room and introduce yourself, but it's kind of cool when other people, even if you don't introduce yourself to them, they see you introducing yourself to somebody else. It's like, oh, this person is real. He cares. He wants to get to know us. That goes a really long way. But for me personally, I just feel more comfortable if I can, meet people before I speak to them, So that's why whenever I go to conferences, no matter when I'm speaking, I put myself into the conference as well. A lot of people actually said this about me specifically. Something I do that a lot of other speakers don't do is a lot of speakers will fly in, present, and then fly out. Like, I like to go and attend the entire event, get to know people. I think that's what really helped me the first time I spoke. Was my presentation was the last presentation at FinCon in 2011. And as much as that was bad because I just couldn't enjoy myself the whole time because I was stressing out, it sort of felt like I had the last final on the last day of exams in college, where everybody else is done with their exams and they could have fun and go home or party or whatever. And here I was studying for this exam that I had on the very last day. So that's sort of what it felt like. So it was bad in that regard, but it was good because I got to really know everybody who was there. And I went out of my way to make sure I introduced myself to everybody so that when I saw them in the audience later, we had that sort of small relationship already, and I could take that moment on stage, take that relationship to the next level instead of just trying to convince them that I'm somebody worth listening to from the start. Now, another thing in regards to your audience and those people who are, sitting there and watching you, one thing I like to do is I like to find the more sort of active people in the audience, the active listeners, those people who, when you say an interesting point, they're like shaking their head, or you can tell they're engaged, or they're watching you wherever you move in the room. I like to pinpoint 2 or 3 of those people when I'm presenting. Typically, they're in the front row, but I will look at them when I'm talking sometimes, and it helps me because I can see their immediate reactions. I mean, that's one of the hardest things about public speaking is you're speaking and people are listening to you. It's hard to understand what their reaction is of the crowd. But when you can pinpoint those people who are into what you're talking about, it really helps and motivates you and gets you to move forward. And it also helps you make sure that you explain yourself in a way that you need to explain yourself, because sometimes those people are there for almost validation for what you're saying as well. So that's another cool thing. Another cool tip I can give you, it's not really a cool tip, but something you should do, is make sure you address all sides of the room too. A lot of times you'll just be center stage, or a lot of people will actually gravitate toward one side of the stage, either the left side of the stage or the right side of the stage. And then so the people on the left side of the audience won't get any love. And, you want to give love to everybody. I remember consciously that was the one thing I wanted to work on when I went to the platform conference for Michael Hyatt last year. No, actually that was this year in February. In Nashville. And that was the thing I worked on, presenting center stage, but also, making sure I looked at everybody in the room. And luckily, it's a smaller conference, about 150 people. So it was a lot easier to go to the end, to one side or another of the stage, and make sure I sort of look at the people in the back of the room, or address them at least, so I can make sure everybody feels included. And that's really important to do as well. Now, as far as the end of your presentation, you want to end with a call to action or some type of challenge. You really want to make sure you take all that information you shared, all the data, all the stories, all the support, everything you did, and bring it together to a point where people can go home or leave that presentation wanting to do something. And there's no better way to do that than with a call to action or a challenge. And that's how you can really make an impact on someone when you challenge them to do something. Take what they've learned from you and actually put it into action. That's when people start talking about you. That's when you actually start to make a change, because you can do these presentations and they could be great, but then almost like a book, it's just, okay, they close it and it's done, right? You don't want the end of your presentation to be the end of the impact that your content has. You want the content that you have to make an impact, a long-lasting impact. And so make sure you end with a call to action. You bring everything together in a memorable way, and you also challenge people to take that information and actually put it to good use. All right, a few other things that I've done in presentations that I haven't really seen other people do, but I would love to share with you. At the beginning of a few of my presentations, and I did this when I was on Creative Live with Derek Halpern, I shared a URL that actually forwarded through a click-to-tweet URL. And what click-to-tweet does is you could set up a sort of pre-filled tweet. So you go to clicktotweet.com, you fill out the form, it's 140 characters because it's for Twitter, and you press generate link. And then that link that it spits out, anytime someone goes to that link, it shows them a pre-filled Twitter thing. If they're signed into Twitter, or even if they're not, they sign into Twitter then. And then it's a pre-filled tweet. All they have to do is click submit. So what do you put in that tweet? You put things like, okay, I'm now watching your Twitter handle live, and then any hashtags that might relate to that conference you're in, and any links that you want to share as well, maybe to that conference. But typically, I just have it as social proof for people who are not at the conference to see that I'm speaking and that other people are watching me. So you can actually go here now. It changes depending on where I'm at, but if you go to patislive.com, that's the URL I bought to forward through a specific click to tweet that I just change where that domain forwards to. I just add a new click to tweet for each event. But if you go to if you go to patislive.com, you'll see a pre-filled out Twitter page where you just click submit, and all of a sudden everybody's sharing that I spoke at that I'm speaking at this event, that they're watching me live, that there's a hashtag there too. I mean, conference directors love this, obviously, because it shares the heck out of your presentation. But it's also good social proof for you too. So after the presentation, you'll go and you'll see. You go to Twitter. I mean, this is one of the first things I do after my presentations. I go to Twitter and I just read all the comments about what I talked about. And a lot of times I'll see hundreds of those of those tweets from that pre-filled out click-to-tweet.com form that I created in there as well. So that's pretty cool. You can get a lot of new Twitter followers that way as well. And in regards to the tweets, I love reading the tweets because sometimes you prepare a presentation and there are parts of your presentation that are just sort of, quote, tweetables, something that you say that people are just going to tweet about. And that's awesome. I mean, if you see people in the room, like on their computers or on their phone, don't necessarily think that they are not paying attention. They might be tweeting something or sharing something that you just shared with everybody else. That seems to be the thing to do now. And so what I always do is I always go into Twitter after my presentations and see what people say. And it's really interesting because I know there's a lot of moments during my presentation that seem to me that are going to be tweetables that actually are tweeted and retweeted a few times. And there are a lot of things that I didn't realize people would tweet about or would make an impact. So there is a great way to see what's working and what's not, or perhaps sort of validate what you think is good in your presentation. So you can take that and remember it, favorite all those things, or just keep note of which ones seem to resonate most with people, so you can use those things again in future presentations. Whether you're redoing that same presentation elsewhere or you are going to do another presentation, craft a new one from scratch, and you just want to take the best parts and the things that worked from your previous presentations, if they fit, of course, and put them into that new one you're doing. So those are all a bunch of different tips that you can use and take with you moving forward. Again, listening to this listening to this episode, you're not going to be, an immediate expert. But once you start putting these things into practice, and I would recommend, focusing on one or two things every time you do another presentation or every time you go into another rehearsal or practice. I typically will practice right up until hours before I present, just so it's fresh in my head. It's almost like cramming for a test, if you will. But that's when I can really fine tune things, get into the things that I really want to focus on, and make sure I do those things when I present. So, wow, I just noticed that we have come up to the hour already, which is crazy. I didn't realize I was going to be able to speak this long about public speaking. But again, this is just, I'm dumping all this out here for you. There are some important things I want to talk about when it comes to slides, though, and I think I want to finish with that because first and foremost, you can work on your presentation and script it out. I wouldn't recommend scripting the whole thing. That's actually one thing I forgot to mention was the first time I did my first presentation, I scripted the whole thing because I was deathly afraid and I was scared. And when I told my coach that I had done that for maybe 2 or 3 different presentations, I scripted the whole thing. Like I wrote 40 pages of stuff to memorize, and I did a pretty good job memorizing it, but I would stress over memorizing it. And I told my coach I did that, and he was like, dude, you're crazy. Like, why would you do that? And I told him, well, I was scared and I want to make sure I got, hit up all the points that I wanted to mention. And he was like, okay, I get that. But what happens when you script everything is A, you might sound too robotic, or, you might just sound like you're reading something when you're on stage. Now, luckily, I'm at a point where I'm pretty good at reading something and making it sound natural. However, most importantly is when you script something, you are leaving out opportunities for creative tangents. And those are things that in regular conversations make conversations interesting. When you have a conversation with someone, you don't script it, but it's those random stories and things that come out during that conversation that make it memorable, that make it amazing. You might think of something almost on the fly that you wouldn't think of if you were just scripting the whole thing. Now, I would definitely make sure, I script the intros. I sort of approach my presentations like I approach my podcasts. So I script the intro because I really want to make sure the beginning is compelling and that people understand that's worth listening to all the way through. But I bullet point the middle or the meat of that particular presentation or podcast episode because I want to, come up with these sort of creative things on the fly. That's how real conversations are, and that's how a real conversation should be when you're talking to your audience, whether it's a podcast, a video, or a presentation. So I will bullet point things and make sure I stick with those points. And I'll include stories that I want to tell, but I don't script those stories. Or if I'm including data, I mention what the point of that data is and sort of what happens, but I don't script exactly what I'm going to say. So, those are really important things to think about. But anyway, going back to slides, you really want to make sure you have your outline and you practice everything, but you also want to make sure you give yourself enough time to create slides. I can't tell you how often I've been to presentations where I talk with some of the other speakers and they're still working on their slides. I mean, I do this too, or I used to do this too. I would work on my slides up till maybe the day before or even the day of, that particular presentation. And yes, I do tweak and I will upload new versions to the conference coordinators to make sure that they have the latest version because I will practice. I will find new things to include or take things out that don't work. But a lot of people won't even start their slides until, a day or two before or even a week before. And that becomes really stressful. And the slides are really important because they will, again, support your message and the stories that you share and the data that you share and everything that has to do with your core message. And that's really what the slides are for. The slides are there for support, not for support like, okay, they're going to guide you through the entire presentation. I mean, they will be there as visual reminders to help you remember what stories to tell. That's what they should be there for. And to also be visual indicators for people or something visually that people can remember in regards to the points that you're making or the stories that you're going to tell or the message you want to share or your core message. But you don't want the slides to become what you rely on to make sure you get through the presentation. This is the whole death by PowerPoint thing. If you haven't heard that before, these are people who are sitting in presentations and they're like dead bored because people are just going through bullet points and reading off the bullet points. I mean, you don't want that. I actually challenged myself during these last couple presentations to not include any bullet points whatsoever. And I'm at a point now where most of my slides are an image and a word or two, and that's it. And then I tell stories based off that. They are just there to emphasize certain points and be a visual reminder for the audience and also for me to remember what stories to tell. And so that's how I approach slides. So I don't include any bullet points. The image is there to just share a couple words to emphasize a specific point of that core message. And I use the slides to enhance my presentation. I don't use it as the core or the message delivery mechanism for my presentation. So those are just the quick things I want to mention about slides. Again, I would make sure to pick up Slideology by Nancy Duarte to get more information about slides. And probably the best tip I can give you is go to slideshare.com and look at the most popular slides and see sort of what they look like. I mean, I got a lot of inspiration before doing a lot of these presentations by going on slideshare.com and checking out the ones that were most interesting to me or the ones that looked most visually appealing. And I didn't copy them, but I used them as inspiration for my own presentations. And again, I also looked at a lot of TED Talks and saw what the slides look like there. And if you go to any TED Talk, you'll see that there are hardly any bullet points whatsoever in any of those presentations. So check that out. Again, I shared a lot of resources here that I will have in the show notes. If you go to smartpassiveincome.com/session87, you'll see the show notes. And I actually invite you to go to smartpassiveincome.com, check out the homepage because I just redesigned the whole website and I'm loving the new direction, mostly because you're loving it or the people who have visited already have said nice things about it. It's definitely a step in the right direction, a lot less overwhelming as far as the content that people see right when they get on the page, and it's more directional. And you'll see that I'm working harder to deliver the information I have to give to you in a way that's more easily consumable, navigatable, I don't even know what that word is, but easier to find your way around the website and things like that. I also added a lot of new features that you'll see on the homepage as well. I've pulled out all the specific businesses and projects I've working on and talking about each of those separately so people know how I got started and what's making money for me as well. And I'm just here to help you. I mean, that's really what I'm here for. And I listen to you. So a lot of the comments that came in after the first iteration, we took into account and I worked with my developer to make sure to include a lot of those things that actually made a lot of sense. So I do listen to you guys. So head on over to smartpassiveincome.com/session87. I'd love to hear from you about what you thought about this presentation. If you have done public speaking before, what tips would you add and share with the community to help out everybody who is also starting out in this journey? And also check out the new design and leave me any comments if you have any suggestions, or if you're digging the new direction. And even if you're not, I want to hear from you. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your support. Just thank you. And for those of you who took the time to vote for the Smart Passive Income Podcast for Top Business Podcast Award, the last day to vote is actually today at I think midnight East Coast. It's been awesome to see all the support for the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Thank you so much for that. Words can't express how thankful I am for you. So thank you so much. I hope you take this information and put it to good use. I would love to see you at a conference sometime, or hear that you are going to be speaking somewhere. That's my challenge for you. So take care. Thank you so much. Have an awesome week. I will talk to you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income Podcast at www.smartpassiveincome.com.
Look, I get it. You want to grow your business, but trying to sell to hundreds or even thousands of people gets very exhausting very fast. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? ScoreApp helps you sell to more people without adding more to your plate. You build a quiz or assessment that your audience actually wants to take. Then they answer a few quick questions and get a personalized result right away. It shows them where they're at and what they need to do next and how you can help. And you build huge amounts of trust before you make even a single offer. No hard sell, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. All you have to do is just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI. Have you dreamt about being your own boss, but still haven't made the first steps to making that dream a reality? Well, I get that. Starting a business can feel super overwhelming with legal forms, paperwork, finances. It's a lot. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Taylor Brands. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal assets and the business assets separate from day one. From there, you get access to everything you need to get off the ground. Legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program, all designed to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free, personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, listeners of this show get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. All you have to do is head to taylorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Taylor Brands.